Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to make a puzzle on the scroll saw. Well, when you think of a puzzle, you think of a picture, and it's divided into different jigsaw pieces, and you put it together to eventually form the image that you see on the box. This is a little different in that, well, there's no picture for starters, but it's still the same concept as a jigsaw puzzle, and it all starts at the bench with a piece of cherry. Well, the dimensions of our stock are 6 inches by 6 inches, and it's 1 inch thick. Now, as I said in the last clip, I'm using cherry, but you can use whatever species you like as long as it's strong enough to support the puzzle pieces. I'm using a lighter color wood today so that the marking will show up a little easier, I hope. The first thing that we want to do is we want to divide our puzzle into 1 inch squares. The next thing that you want to do is you want to think about how you want your puzzle to work. And generally what we're going to do is we're going to come in here about 1/4 of the distance, and once we get at that point, we're going to turn our saw out into here, make some kind of a tongue piece, it doesn't matter what, and then somewhere around the 3/4 inch mark, that is where your blade is going to recontact your grid line, and you will cut to the next square, and around the 1/4 inch mark you will curve up through and cut another one, and again returning roughly at the 3/4 mark. You want to do this all the way along the piece. Now, of course, you don't have to mark these. You can do as you please. If you want, you can just fake it and make it up as you go along. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess it depends really on how much skill you have at the scroll saw. Well, now that you have that drawn on the first line, you will repeat the process for each one of these vertical lines along your piece of stock. Well, now that our design is drawn out, we can head over to the scroll saw. Well, in order to make the pieces of the puzzle a tighter fit, you want to choose a blade that will provide the smallest kerf, but yet still be able to cut the stock. For this, I'm going to try a number 3 reverse tooth blade and see how we do. So we're just going to cut these rows out, and if you don't want to have to figure out the puzzle later, just put them back together as you go. Also, before you start cutting, you want to make sure that your blade is square to your table. Okay, I'm getting quite a bit of resistance in the cut, and I can smell the cherry burning, so the number 3 blade is not gonna cut it for this project. So I'm gonna pull this out of here. I don't really want to go to a number 7, but I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. Well, I'm not going to lie to you, that's a tough cut. The cherry really doesn't like that number 7 blade. As you can see around these tight corners, it's burning it. But you know what, this is just a fun puzzle project, and I'm just showing you how to do it. I do like the way that these fit together though, so I guess number 7 is the way I'm going to cut this, at least this part of the project. You don't need a video of me cutting along all of these lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out all of these puzzle pieces that I've drawn out, and then I'll come back and see, we'll move on to the next step. Don't jump ahead and separate these. You want to keep them just in rows for now. Well, at this stage, you should have something that looks like this. And I just want to caution you that as you're going around your puzzle pieces, really slow down and take your time, because if not, you're going to end up with this kind of a situation that I have on this piece here. I'll just show you. You'll see that all of them come apart fairly easily. I believe it's this one here. Yes. I rushed it too much around these curves, and now they are a different size on the top and the bottom, and that is because of blade deflection. So because I was trying to go too quickly, I have now distorted our little pins here. So what that means for the puzzle is that it only goes together one way. You can only put it in that way. You cannot put it in this way. Makes it a little more challenging, but it was caused by a mistake on my part. So just a caution, take your time. So now, this is where the puzzle gets a little bit funky. Well, what I've done here is I have secured one of our pieces into a hand screw clamp, and I've turned it up on its end like this. And what we're gonna do is the exact same thing we just did, where at every intersection in the middle between the pieces here, where either our little sockets are or our pins are, we're going to cut another piece right down the middle, so that we are now dividing this into two with a puzzle piece that has to fit together. If that's a little confusing for you, I will take you over to the scroll saw and show you what I'm talking about. So I have transferred the marks here. You can see these little tick marks right here and here and here. That represents the line of the grid. And I've also kind of just placed a little bit of a center line down there just to give me some guidance. So I'm gonna have to get this in the way here, but I'll show you how we're gonna cut this. Now when you're done, you can take it out of your screw clamp, or your hand screw clamp rather, and you can see that we have now a second dimension to the puzzle, which really kind of changes things up a bit now, doesn't it? Because you don't have to worry about just the one side. You've got kind of that three-dimensional thing happening now. So just like I did with all the other ones, I'm going to go and cut these. You don't need a video of it. I just showed you how to do it. I've just been making the shapes up as I go, and you can do the exact same thing, and I'll see you when we get these separated. Well, at this point, you should have all of your rows cut, and then as well, each row split so that that comes apart, and each one forms a complex puzzle piece. So now what? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I just want to point out to you that these are tough cuts. They're very tough cuts, so take your time. You want to use that hand screw clamp to help you hold the smaller pieces so that you're not having to have so much fatigue on your hands. As well, guys, because these are tougher cuts, take breaks. Don't do it all in one shot. Take some breaks, get up, walk around the shop, stretch a little bit. They're tough cuts. don't burn yourself out doing them. So during the whole process up to this point in time, I have burned out 6 number 7 blades. That's not a big deal. You have to remember that blades are considered a consumable. And to hang on to a dull blade to get it to continue to cut for you to save on the price of the blade lessens the quality of your project. As well, you will have to be pushing a lot harder to get that stock to cut. Your blade will deflect. You're going to cause all kinds of problems. For the sake of 6 blades, who cares? They're a dime a dozen. They're sold in packs of 12. Use up what you have to make good cuts. So, now it's time to cut these pieces yet again. And for this, we're cutting them apart now into their individual squares. How do you cut it? Well, let's head over to the scroll saw and I'll explain what we're going to do. The very first thing that we're going to do in order to continue is we're going to change our blade. We're going to change it from a number 7 back to our number 3 that didn't work for us at the previous process. But the reason we can get away with it now is because we're going to be cutting much smaller pieces. In other words, they'll be thinner. So we're going to take one of our strips here from our piece. We're going to separate it just like this, and we're going to lay it flat side down on the table. After we get that done, we can transfer our marks for our 1-inch cubes just roughly onto the non-flat part of our puzzle piece. And from there, we're just going to cut them up into puzzle-shaped pieces, and we'll alternate. You know what? I'll stop talking. I'll just show you. Just like that. So now this becomes our puzzle piece, kind of a 3-dimensional thing. So we're going to carry on now and separate each one of these. So carry on and separate all of your pieces now. Now with all the cutting done, you just need to give each piece a little bit of a sanding, and that is all there is to it. The project is finished. Just be careful with the pieces as they are fragile, or some of them can be. I've already broken 2 pieces, but I was able to glue them back together. So just be careful. And there you have it. A 3D puzzle made on the scroll saw. Guys, this project was just a blast. And cutting it like this, you end up with a 72-piece puzzle. It doesn't seem like much, but because there's no picture and because it has that 3rd dimension, it's extremely challenging because you're not sure how the pieces actually go together. Are you looking at a piece that should be side to side or front to back? You have no idea. Either way, it's one heck of a lot of fun. It's challenging in other ways too, not just for putting it together, but cutting it can be a challenge due to the thickness of the material. Those are tough cuts. Like I said, I went through all those number 7 blades. That's just the price of doing business in this case. But it is a challenge to cut those cuts. Not so much that they're hard cuts to do, but it's hard to pull yourself back and go slow. That is the secret to getting nice 90-degree cuts on all of your puzzle pieces. Guys, there's many different variations that you could do with this project. What if you tilted your blade by 1 or 2 degrees? That way, as you're cutting all the pieces off kilter like that, they can't slide either way together. They can only go together one way because it will create a tapered hole or a tapered, I guess, a tongue or a tapered pocket, whatever you want to call the puzzle pieces. But they will only go together one way, which would add even another dimension to the challenge of it. What about doing it smaller? How small could we go? What if we started off this puzzle, instead of being 1 inch thick, what if we started it off to be, oh, I don't know, let's say 1/2 inch thick, and did the exact same process that we just did? What kind of a puzzle would you end up? Would you be able to cut it? There's the challenge for you. Would it be able to be cut? You could do it out of 3/4. You could do it out of, you know what? The sky's the limit. It depends on how far you want to push it. Guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss notifications of the future episodes of the show. If you've enjoyed this content today, please feel free to share it. And guys, I hope that you're going to try this for yourself. I hope that you've enjoyed today's show, and I hope that you're going to join me next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video. By the way, if you're looking for a box to put this puzzle in, how about one of those simple utility boxes I showed you a while ago? I'll put the link below. See you next week.